and bold. My name is Deborah Darris, Latina speaker, author of Confessions of an Adrenaline Addict, How to Achieve More with Less Effort, and marketing consultant. I am here to bring you a fabulous guest, like always on Transformational Tuesday, an expert in her field that's going to help you to transform your life. And today we are going to transform anxiety, stress. Got stress, people? Not to worry, because our special guest is Miss Sheryl Bard. Welcome, Sheryl.
Hi, Deb. You look great in your new studio against your green there.
Thank you so much. I'm
Beautiful.
so happy to be here. I love having just space and abundance in all areas of my life. So I'm so grateful and
Well,
grateful
thank
to
you for
you.
asking me. Thank you for asking me.
Yes, I've been wanting to interview you forever. You've been on my wish list of guests. And so the fact
It's
that
been
we,
about 5 or 6 years, I think, since the last time you interviewed me, probably, right? Like 6 or 7 years. Yeah, it's
yes,
been a while.
exactly. And let me give you a formal introduction because I want people to know how lucky we are to have you on Deb TV. So let me introduce you to Miss Sheryl Bard. She is a certified behavioral hypnotherapist and master therapeutic imagery facilitator. She's going to tell you what that is. She specializes in nervous habits and anxiety disorders. You can have life-transforming successes and release from many forms of stress, anxiety, fears, and phobias. This can include relationship problems, relief of obsessive-compulsive thoughts and behaviors, stuttering, anxiety-related addiction with food, sugar, cigarettes, and anything that makes you feel completely out of control. She is a master at helping you to get into control of your mind and body by dissolving the obstacles that keep you from feeling powerful and holding you back from having the successful life that you love. And by the way, her offices are located here in beautiful Culver City, Los Angeles, California, but you can also do sessions over online, right? And she's generously offering everyone, is that true?
Yes,
A free half an
everyone.
hour session?
A free half-hour consultation and 50% off of the first session.
Oh my God, that is so sweet of you. So she's offering everyone a free half an hour consultation and 50% off your first session. So that is
Yes.
super generous of you, and I really appreciate that. And you know, right now, especially with the holidays coming, people are feeling anxiety and stress with everything that's going on in the world, from one tragedy after another. It just seems like you can feel the tension and anxiety in the air, Sheryl.
Yes.
And if there ever has been a time for us to really be the change we want to see in the world, we really need to create peace within ourselves if we want to see it out there. So I really think it's timely that we're having you on our show, and I want to thank you on behalf of all your clients on the work that you do in the world, because it's so needed. It really, really is. And I want to just hear how you got into the field of helping people to get rid of anxiety and phobias. If you could just tell us your story.
Well, my story is basically the way I became a hypnotherapist was I was working out with a physical trainer, and he bought some hypnosis CDs or something on an infomercial and said, "Here, take these home and tell me if they work." So I took them home and I was listening to them, before I went to sleep at night, and I felt like I was just falling asleep. I was like, didn't remember anything, and I said, I wonder if I was really hypnotized or am I just falling asleep? So I decided to do a little research about, hypnosis and what it was supposed to feel like and how it worked. And as I was doing this research, I started to get really interested in it. And then I thought, well, maybe I'll just take a little class just for fun, just to see how it really works. And I couldn't find any really little classes, but what I did find were schools that I could go to, and that you could actually make a career out of this. And I'm like, wouldn't that be great? Right. So that's what I did. And the reason I got into anxiety and specializing in anxiety is because I had an issue of my own that I was able to get through in class as I was learning how to control anxiety issues that helped me so much that I thought, this is great. I can get over something that I've been having in my life since I was 3 years old. And it was a fear of escalators. I had this fear of escalators. And there was no reason for it, except for I had fallen down escalators when I was little, but I didn't even get hurt. Well, I was reacting off of my mother's reaction of her getting so scared that I was going, that I may have gotten hurt, going down the escalator. So what I did was I just took on that fear that she had. So every time I would get to an escalator, I would be like tunnel vision. You see the escalator and you're coming up on it, and my heart would start racing, and I would start to feel this anxiety, and I would get to the top of the escalator and stand there forever, like an hour, getting ready to get on the escalator, people piling up behind me, and the anxiety would just keep building and building until I'd finally force myself on the escalator and just, this went on for years. And, with only one session of hypnosis, I actually got over that.
That is so,
Yeah.
and this is what people don't understand, the power of hypnosis. And I interviewed another hypnotherapist, and can you just define what is hypnosis for people that don't understand what it is and why it works so amazingly?
Right. Well, there's so many myths behind it. Everyone thinks that there's some sort of control going on, and it's not like that at all. It just gets you into a state of mind where you are more accepting of suggestions. And not everyone takes suggestions in the same way. Some people take suggestions directly, some take them indirectly. So the biggest thing you have to learn is how do you take suggestions? How would you take suggestions? How does this person take suggestions? And everyone can be hypnotized. It's just whether or not you're going to take on the suggestions. So that's where I come in. I work with you to be able to give you the messages that you need, that you will take on. So you're not asleep. We're talking about you're actually in a hyper-aware mode, in a hyper-aware state. So like right now, you and I are just, kind of talking, and you're listening to the sound of my voice. But if you were in hypnosis right now, you'd be hearing all your senses would be on hyper alert, and you would be hearing every little noise, and you would be feeling every little movement. And it's kind of similar to that feeling when you're getting ready to fall off to sleep at night and you're almost asleep and you feel yourself kind of dropping down into sleep. And then all of a sudden you kind of come back up again a little bit, and then you go back down. You're not asleep yet. You're not awake. You're kind of in that in-between state. That's what it feels like. It feels like meditation, except for in meditation, the whole point is you want to empty your mind, right? And with hypnosis, you're in the same state, but we're putting things into the subconscious mind, and when you're ready to accept them.
So people that are that take suggestions easier, they'll find that they'll have better results with hypnosis?
No, not necessarily. Because just as suggestible as they might be to me, I'll give you a perfect example. I learned the hard way, that the very first smoker that I ever did, I had them practically throwing up in the chair because they were so suggestible about how horrible those cigarettes were going to be that if they ever smoked again, right? And I was like, oh, that person's never going to smoke ever again. They're so affected by this. They took on every little suggestion I said because they were just so suggestible. But then I finally realized when they go back out in the real world, as suggestible as they might be to me, guess who else they're suggestible to? Everybody else, right? So the first time somebody comes up and says, here, have a cigarette, they're like, okay. So then I had to learn those type of people, you have to really, really push on them that that they will not take on those suggestions from anyone else. So you just learn as you go along after doing this for as many years as I have of how people take suggestions, how they take on suggestions. So really the ones that are more skeptical, the ones that seem harder to take on suggestions, they're actually the easier ones, because you know why? They take suggestions best from who? Themselves.
Yeah, I have the biggest fear besides of driving on the freeway, which I'm already going to make it.
Which we're gonna take care of that problem for you, Deb.
I'm getting better, but you know what? Even just the suggestion of you telling me that it was possible to get rid of made me able to at least get on and get off. I'm only on 1 or 2 exits, but just you saying that it was possible, you're like, I know I can get rid of that. I'm like, really? And then I was like, okay, great. But my other big anxiety is going into the restroom on a plane.
Ah,
And
that's a good one.
what I'm curious is, just for the people that are listening, is what causes these fears and how does our brain work that it sticks? We're so many years we could hold on to something that we
Right,
know isn't good for us. Why does
right.
the brain do that?
Well, a lot of it is just you're so hypnotizable. You take on
Mm,
suggestions every time you hear someone else talking about experience about them, about their fear of driving or their fear of going in a bathroom on a plane, or taking on the suggestions of your parents is a big one. It's like if
mm.
you have a driving, if you really think about it, there's probably somebody else in your family that has a similar fear to that
My
as what you
mom,
have.
when I was a
Exactly.
baby, but she
So
got rid of it like when I was 3 years old. But from the
right.
time I was 1 to 3, she was having panic attacks while driving.
Right. And even though you're only 1 to 3 and you probably don't even remember that, you took on her energy from 1 to 3 every time that she would get in that car and she would have you in the seat. That's probably how she got the fear in the first place, because she had her precious baby in the car with her, and you felt that energy of her fear every time you rode in the car with her, and it stuck with you. It stuck with you, and it will stick with you until you really, when you think about it, when you realize, okay, this is a learned fear. The difference between a fear and a fear is something you know where it came from. Like my fear of escalators, I knew where that came from. A
Mhm.
phobia is when you have something and you have no idea where you've got it because you've never had anything bad happen. You don't know why it's there. That's a phobia. A fear is more, you know where it came from. Like I know that I fell down those escalators, not that I got hurt, but I know that that's where it came from.
So logically, how does hypnosis work? Does it take the tape that's the negative limiting belief, re-record it with a positive belief, or how does it work?
What it does, it works three different ways. It's you have to retrain the way the brain thinks, right? So it works through the fear of repetition. The fear of repetition, the law of repetition, and it also works through the law of basically changing the way that you are going to perceive something.
Mm.
So, and also through replacement. So if you have a fear of driving, we would have to replace that with something that your subconscious would accept.
What do you mean?
For example, maybe we would have you, instead of focusing on your driving and the fear of that driving, we would have you focus on just even putting your two fingers together or something and putting all the tension right there. So where you're replacing, you're just thinking about removing it from here and putting it here. And just that much of a little bit of a shift and a replacement could keep you from having the anxiety.
Interesting. And the law of repetition is what? That if you do something over and over, it
Okay,
changes?
think about how we learn things. When you were in school, what would you say was your hardest subject in school?
Math, for sure.
Math, right? Okay, so when you had to take a math exam at school, what did you have to do to learn that material?
Get a tutor.
But what did you have to do to get it?
Oh,
Lots
the
of
flashcards.
repetition.
1 + 1 is 2.
Yeah,
2 +
lots of
2 is 4.
repetition,
4 +
right?
2 is
Lots of
6, right?
yes. So repetition of doing the same thing over and over and over again, right? And so the law of repetition, that is what changes things. That's how you learn things. Also, the law of association, which is the word I was trying to think of earlier, law of association. So in that way, think about how else do we learn? What if you're trying to remember somebody's name? What do you do?
I actually do. I think maybe I learned it from you. Remember, I think I did. I took a class with you, and you said if you have somebody's name associated with something that you already have in your brain, if you
Right,
don't, then you can't remember it. Yeah, you taught
right.
me that.
Yeah. So, it's something you associate with something that you already know. And you would make a new association with it. So, for example, I just told you where you probably got your driving fear.
Mhm.
That's a very probable way that you got it. You probably felt that energy from your mother. It stuck with you, and you've taken on that fear also in a subconscious
Mhm.
way. So, but if I said, well, now that you know that might be where you got it and you realize that, now you can make a new association out of that and say, okay, well, it's nothing that's really founded of why I have this fear of driving. It's because, you see it as it's something that was learned, and then you see how, oh, maybe we can just make this meaningless because it wasn't my fear, it's her fear that was coming off on me. So if you can make that new association, then you're better able to separate your fear and your anxiety from what you're actually doing.
So literally through self-talk or just through perception, saying this is not my fear, this is my mother's fear. So it doesn't even affect me, right?
Right. Or that it shouldn't affect you. But then the other thing you have to think about, when people come into my office and they say, I have such anxiety, I have to ask, the very first question I ask is, okay, what does that anxiety feel like to you? What does it feel like in your physical body? And then you have to explain exactly how it feels in your physical body. And I'll get 20,000 different responses of how that feels. So anxiety is a different thing to everyone. Anxiety can be for anywhere from, oh, I just feel like I'm sweating, or up to I am paralyzed on the floor with a heart attack. I have such bad anxiety. Yeah, but everyone uses the same word for a million different feelings in your body. So the first thing you have to do is stop using the word anxiety, because every time you say anxiety, it keeps it real for you, right?
Oh.
And you can't go from, oh, I don't have anxiety to, oh, I have absolutely no anxiety overnight. But you can slowly change it from, I have anxiety to, I feel a little uncomfortable. And you can take that down to a level where it's not anxiety anymore.
And I'm just sharing this because I know some of you will be able to relate, and I think it's good to have a real life example. I think that there is a part of me specifically that doesn't want to release it because I was so burnt out from driving. Because I started driving when I was 15, and I used to drive my boyfriend, I used to drive my husband, because they didn't drive. And then I was driving for a job I hated. So there was this message, I don't want to drive, I don't want to drive, I don't want to. So when I started having anxiety over driving, and then they invented Uber and Lyft, I'm like, perfect. I never have to drive. So there's like
Right.
this subconscious thing besides the fear that's like, oh, you deserve not to drive.
And that's a very good point, because if it's not something that's interfering with your life, you have no real reason to want to change it. I got over my fear of escalators, but along with that fear of escalators, I had a fear of anything that was downhill, like downhill sports, like skiing or going downhill on rollerblades. I wiped out twice going downhill on rollerblades. I'm like, that's it, I'm done with those. I
Me
don't have any.
too, my knee injury.
It's like I don't have any desire to get back on roller skates. I don't have any desire to learn how to ski. But not being able to go down an escalator was a huge obstacle in my life. Because it was just so embarrassing to get to the top of an escalator and not be able, and have to stand there like, paralyzed, not being able to step on the escalator. And, and people behind me would be waiting. And it was so, just that part of it made me so, anxious. So there was something I really wanted to get over. And the more you want to get over it, you can't make anybody do anything that they don't want to do in hypnosis. So if you don't want to drive because you don't feel like you need to drive, that's a different issue. We're going to have to work on something else.
I think that's why it's been taking so long to get over because there's a part of me that doesn't want to do that. But let me
so
ask
that's
you
a completely
question.
different issue than having a fear of driving.
Let me ask you a question. When you released your going down in the escalator, did it also release your fear of going down for skiing or rollerblading too? Does it clear it
I
all
don't
completely?
I don't know if it did. I don't think I never really tried to do those things. I never wanted to do those things. So I don't know. I've never tried to do those things, except for the rollerblading I did. But then my fear, it became of something that was, I fell down twice going downhill where I couldn't stop on my rollerblades. So, I guess you could say I would still have a fear, but that's a founded fear.
Yeah.
I've actually gotten really hurt. I couldn't, my knee was twisted for 6 months, and so that's, you were asking, one of the questions you wanted to ask me was, what's the difference between stress and anxiety? Stress is more real than anxiety. When you're feeling stress about something, that's how you define the two. Having stress when you have a reason to feel stress is a little different than having anxiety for something that's not real.
So just like phobia is something that you don't know what the cause
You don't know where
is,
it came from.
and anxiety is just kind of like a generalized fear.
It's more like a phobia, than it is some people would probably disagree with me on that, but I think a phobia and anxiety is very close to the same thing, because it's all stemmed from the same thing. For example, when you get anxiety about something, say if you have a fear of flying or a fear of driving, think about the first time you noticed that fear of driving. It probably started with a physical feeling that came in your body, maybe dizziness, or what is it what happened to you when you first remember having that fear of driving?
It really was a panic attack. I had coffee on an empty stomach, and I was
There you go.
driving somewhere I didn't want to go, and I literally just had this idea that it was like the world was closing in on me,
Right.
and I had to like immediately get off the freeway. It was like an accordion. I was being smashed, and I
Yeah.
was suffocating, and I couldn't breathe, and so I had to get off the freeway, and I was shaking, like I was
Right.
literally shaking. And my mom's like, "Oh, that was probably like hypoglycemia. It wasn't an
Yes,
anxiety attack."
exactly. Which is good that you see that point, right? And you could have had that happen anywhere. You could have had that happen laying in a lawn chair on the beach, and you would have had a fear of the beach instead of
I need a
driving.
mojito right away. I don't think so, girl.
So you just happened to have that feeling as you were driving. That's when you first got the feeling. So then you associated it with the driving instead of seeing it for what it is. Oh, I just had a sugar crash, from
Oh,
from having
I
too
see what
much.
you're saying.
So that's where you got to make a new association. It's not really a fear of driving. You just associated that feeling that you got that day. It has to have something to do with the driving.
And I was
So
also
every time,
excessively stressed out too.
right.
So I had sugar, and I wasn't sleeping well, and I was stressed out. And I was like multiple things.
Exactly. And that's how people get a fear of flying a lot of times too, that they have some physical reaction when they get onto an airplane, and then they associate it that it has something to do with the plane, when it doesn't. It was probably from not getting any sleep or packing or being, being anxious of moving somewhere or wherever you're going, that, you're going someplace new, but your body reacts to that, and it shuts down, and it starts to tell you that that you're having anxiety, and then you feel like you can't control it. And the more you feel like you can't control it, the worse it gets. But if I told you, okay, the next time you go on the freeway, I guarantee you that you will not have that anxiety ever again.
Why? How?
But I'm just saying, if I said to you, okay, when you get on the freeway and you start to feel that feeling, I'm going to teach you how to not feel the feeling. In fact, I'm going to desensitize you to it so much and you'll know for sure that you can control it, that it won't even start to happen, because you'll know that you can control it. So basically, I would be teaching you how to control the feelings in your body that you get. So you learn so well that you can control it, that it doesn't even happen, because the only reason it happens in the first place is because you're afraid that you're not going to be able to control it. So if you know for sure you can control it, then there's no reason it's not even going to come up.
And that's why I really love my hot yoga practice, because in hot yoga, it's really hot. It's like 102 degrees, and there's a feeling that you can't breathe, but they teach you through the breath to relax your breathing, so then it dissipates, and I thought that would transfer to the driving, but it hasn't yet. But once I see you, I'm sure it will. But enough about my driving stuff. I know a lot of, I don't even want to talk about it. I'm booking my session as we speak. Assistant, do it. I know a lot of people right now are really concerned. Obama just gave an address recently about everything that's been going on with San Bernardino, and then the Paris, and just so much tragedy going on in the world with things that are totally beyond our control. Terrorism, right?
Right.
And how can people, and this is a really realistic fear. It's not like a phobia. It's like, what do you suggest for people to
Right.
reduce that fear so that we're not all walking around with this anxiety and contributing to this
Right.
negativity in the world?
Right, right. Well, you said it best. You said you said that it's a reality. And yes, the fear of terrorism is a reality, but it's been there. It's always been there.
Mhm.
We just didn't know about it so much. Now we know much more about it, right? But it's always been there.
Mhm.
And that's what terrorists do. That's what they want from us is to build our anxiety so much. That is what terrorism means is, where they want us to be fearful and build that anxiety, in us. So the first thing you have to do is decide we don't want to let them win.
Mhm.
It might be real, but you as an individual, unless you do something, join the army or something, there's nothing that you physically can do to stop it from happening.
Mhm.
So the only thing that you can control is how you react to it, right?
Right.
And as many bad things that are happening in the world, there's that many good things happening in the world too.
Mhm.
And negative thoughts and worrying about things that haven't happened yet is not real. Positive thoughts are not real either. But which unreal world would you rather live in? Can you hear that
Hmm.
phone? That weird phone
No.
ringing? Okay, I'm going to
No.
try.
So you're saying positive thoughts are not real?
Positive thoughts aren't real and negative thoughts aren't real. It's just a perception.
Okay.
Some people, that's the difference between, negative people and positive people. Negative people stay in that negative thought all the time. They don't allow themselves to think about the positive things. Positive people do the same thing. And some people say, "Oh, they're so positive. They're just, they can't even they don't even they're not based in reality."
Exactly.
It's not based in reality. To never think about terrorism, that's not reality. You have to think about those things. You have to prepare for it. You have to know exactly what to do when that happens. You have to worry about it constantly. No, we don't have to worry about it constantly. We don't have to watch the news every night that is completely sensationalized,
Exactly.
especially people with anxiety. I'm not saying that we should be completely oblivious to what's going on in the world, but don't completely ignore all the good stuff that's happening in the world too, though. Because that's basically what the media is doing, is ignoring all the good stuff and sensationalizing all the bad stuff to build our anxieties. And then guess who wins? The terrorists are winning. We're not winning. And then it's causing mass hysteria. And what does mass hysteria do? It causes more people to grab guns and go out there and shoot up everybody, you know? And that's not what we want either. So unless you can physically do something that makes you feel powerful, if you can go and do something about it, if you can do volunteer work or you can do something that makes you feel powerful towards a cause, then do that, because that's where you feel powerful.
Exactly. The other night, because I have a lot of friends in the Inland Empire, I was like, oh my goodness, what can I do? And I just looked at somebody's Facebook wall and they were having this donation thing to the United Way. So I started posting that instead of watching the news and being in worry. I am not a news person because I'm so sensitive and susceptible to
Yes.
energy and situation. So I know for me, but so what I did was I just turned on YouTube to see what was going on, or Periscope to see what was going on,
Right.
so I could get the
And that
information
is the best way. That's it.
without
Don't
getting
get
drawn,
pulled
sucked
into
into it.
yeah, because you're getting hypnotized. The more you sit and watch, that San
Exactly.
Bernardino stuff has been on 24/7 ever since it
Oh, it
happened.
has? Oh,
It's just,
really?
there people are just watching it and, just getting so consumed by it and getting so fearful and so anxiety and you're worried every time you just walk into a grocery store that somebody's going to do something. Yeah, but like you said, you can just read the headlines and know exactly what's going on without your imagination going crazy, without having to listen to the media and watching the same thing over and over and over and over again and seeing that, just that repetition of it. That's just embedding that fear and that anxiety into your body and into your brain.
It's literally programming worry,
Programming you.
anxiety, and
How do
fear.
you think the terrorists got this way in the first place?
Yeah,
Why did
yeah, you're
they
right.
So you get into that fear thing. The only way you can get someone to do something through hypnosis is you've got to build the fear. in them, that you have to make that person think they are so unsafe that they will, do something. Like if you, for example, you would never be able to get anybody to hurt somebody. If that's not in their nature, you're not going to be able to get them to hurt somebody unless you convince them somehow that they're trying to hurt you, right?
It
So
takes
you don't,
programming, whether it's positive programming or
yeah,
negative programming, it takes repetitive.
exactly. And you don't have to be in a hypnosis state for that to work.
Mm.
That's just repetition. And when all we hear all day long by watching the news is how bad the world is and how much bad things are going on in the world, and we don't hear about the positive things. So I mean, I always suggest, I tell every single client to do this. I've told you to do this, I'm sure. But it's like, what you want to do is, before you go to bed at night, I mean, there's so much negative stuff in the world, right? And it's not like I can program anybody. I can't even program myself to never have a negative thought. That's just not possible. But you can retrain your brain to have more positive thoughts than negative thoughts.
Mhm.
And one way that you can start doing that is, at night before you go to bed, just take a notebook, even like a little 5x7 notebook, and just write down all the good things that happened to you today. Skip over any negative things. Just write down and write it in a way that makes you feel good when you're saying it. So write it like in a paragraph form, like oh, I woke up this morning and the sun was shining and I was sitting by my pool and I was drinking my coffee, right? And you just talk about all the good things that happened to you, skipping over any negative things, and you do it right before you go to sleep. That's the last thing you do before you go to sleep, because then you have all those positive things going into your head as you go to sleep, instead of watching the news and having all that negative stuff going through your head as you're falling asleep. Because that's when you're in the most natural state of hypnosis, is right before you go to sleep. So the more positive things you can put in there, the better.
And this is why I am so against and sensitive to violence. I mean, there's violence on TV, there's violence, not even the news, on, shows, on video games, and I just make it a point not to expose my consciousness to that, because I know how susceptible I am. But when you think
You know
about
why?
our
Because
kids,
because you'll make it real for yourself
mhm,
when it's not
exactly.
real. It's real, but it's not real. It's just a thought that you're having, and people have different thoughts about the same thing. It's their own thought, and it feels real to you, and it feels real to me. My thoughts feel real to me, and your thoughts feel real to you, but they're not really real. Because if they were real, everyone would have the same exact thought.
So it goes back to perception, right?
Perception. And you can't change what's going on in the world. All you can change is how you're reacting to it. That's all you can change. And
So,
the more we react to it, the more it's going to happen.
because whatever we focus on expands. So if we
Well,
focus
that, and
on,
and terrorists see, oh, well, I mean, the ISIS is sitting over there laughing their heads off at us right now, that we're so fearful of all this stuff that's been happening. That's what their whole goal is to get us into such a state of anxiety. That is, if you look up the definition of terrorist, and I can't remember exactly what it says, but it's basically, terrorizing someone is it's all a mind game. That's what terrorists do. It's all a mind game, and they're winning. Don't let them win.
and don't let them
If
win by starting with taking control of your own mindset.
Right, if we had no reaction over all this stuff that was happening, I mean, they want the attention. We're giving them all the attention. That's exactly what we're doing. We're giving them the attention that they want,
So
because
besides,
they love seeing us in fear.
right, so besides the evening gratitude, what other techniques would you recommend to people to reduce fear?
Well, basically, every time that you are thinking these thoughts, having a little talk with yourself and reminding yourself,
Mm,
okay, this is just something that's happening. Everything else is what you're attaching to it, right? Have you ever taken any landmark courses or anything? And they really are big on teaching that, this is just something that happened, and this is what you attach to it. And if you can just separate the two, then you can make what happened meaningless, and you can create a new meaning for it, right? It's the same thing with your fears, your anxiety. Replace it with a better thought. Just because you worry about it and have these awful thoughts about it, you're not going to be able to keep it from happening. You're not going to even be really able to be better prepared for it. How many people thought they were going to go to a holiday luncheon in San Bernardino and something so horrible happening? But how many people get on a plane every day and think, oh, there's a terrorist on the plane, because that's what we're programmed to think, right, all the time. You're not going to a holiday party thinking the terrorists are going to walk in and shoot everybody. I'm sure there weren't people walking into that luncheon that day going, oh, wow, I should make sure that I bring my guns with me and that I'm watching my somebody's going to hurt me. They weren't thinking that, but it still happened. It still happened. So whether they thought about it or not, it was still going to happen. So you might as well not let them win, and at least if something bad's going to happen, it's going to happen. But at least you have led your best, happiest life you can possibly lead, because you were happy and you had positive thoughts and you focused on the positive instead of focusing on all that negative and the anxiety.
Yeah, and I really believe in divine order, that whatever is going to happen is going to happen. So I need to live in the moment, not to live 5 minutes ahead, because, then I could worry and project. But right now, if it's my time, it's my time. If it's not my time, then it's not my time.
And that's the way you have to think about it. People who are fear of driving, you're in your fear of like, well, what if something happens to me, right? It could, you're right. Something could happen to you on the freeway. But something could happen to you walking down the street too. Whenever it's your time, it's going to be your time. It doesn't, it's, and the thing is, but you just have to live the best that you can, because if it is your time, it's your time. And you don't want to have any regrets when that happens. So you might as well try to stay as positive and live in that, which unreal world would you rather live in? Because none of it's real anyway. So you might as well just live in the most positive one you can live in.
And when you say none of it's real, for those people that don't know what that means, how do you define that? If it's not real, what is it?
It's, again, it's perception. Think about this. Tell me something about yourself that you wish you could change, like a personality trait or something.
I wish I could be more focused.
Okay, so you're not focused, right? That's what you're telling me. I'm not focused.
Well, I am focused, but it's challenging.
Yeah.
To stay focused.
So now, when did you decide that you weren't focused? When did you decide that?
I think when I saw a video of myself talking, and I was on one topic and then another topic and another topic, I was like, oh my goodness, I need to stay focused.
Okay, but when you were born and you were in that little crib in the hospital, was there a sign over your head that said, this little girl isn't focused?
No.
So somewhere along the line, you created that for yourself. It wasn't real.
Well, my dad used to give me lectures over and over.
Okay.
Oh, you need to focus.
You need to focus. Right.
With this Colombian accent. Focus.
Exactly. Okay, now you've made me a believer that you don't focus, because you just told me that you don't focus. But if you would have said, I'm really good at focusing, I would have believed that too. So you created your reality to me about who you are by telling me that you're not focused. Now, if you would have said, I'm the most focused person in the world, then I would say, oh, well, she's really focused. So see what I mean? You not only created your own reality, but you created the reality of what everyone else thinks of you also by making statements like that. And you've had help. You've had people tell you, your dad told you, stay focused, you're not being focused, or, And the thing is the more you say, I'm really focused, you actually become more focused the more you say it. Like I used to say, oh, I'm so unorganized, and that was really real to me until I thought, no, wait a minute, there's no sign over my head when I was in the hospital being born that said this little girl is unorganized. I created that somewhere along the line, and I'm sure I had help from from somebody, teachers, your parents, whatever. But the minute you start to say, I'm organized, I am organized. It may not be organized the way you would be organized, but it's my organization, right? You're focused. You do 10 million trillion things a day. I don't know how you do so much.
I really do.
You have a lot of focus, so for you to tell me you're not focused, I don't believe that. I really don't believe that, because it takes a lot of focus to do what you do and to juggle as many things and projects and things that you do. You might seem a little unfocused because you're mind is here and your mind is here and you're everywhere. But you have to be a focused person to be able to do what you do. So now that I just made a new association of what your non-focused means. So now you can say, wow, maybe she's right. Maybe I am focused. And you can start saying, I'm focused. I am focused.
I am super focused. Call
Yeah.
me SF.
And now you start to make that real for yourself.
Yes.
And it's not real either. You saying you are focused is not real either. But which unreal world would you rather live in, right?
Oh. So we're co-creating our world through our perception, through our self-talk, and through literally speaking into reality what we want to bring our attention to. Our
Exactly.
intention, bring our attention to our intention, which
Yeah.
is super focus or whatever your intention is.
Right.
You guys have to decide that and then claim it. Yes?
Right. Yes. And you remember the whole little, what they call those things, the fear, what fear is, the little, was it called an anagram? What's it called?
Oh, the
When
false evidence appearing
acronym,
real?
whatever that's called, false evidence appearing real.
Mm-hmm.
Because when we are, or when we're worrying about things, you're always worrying about things. How many things do we worry about that's really, really happening? When you worry, it's you're worrying about things that haven't happened yet. You're not living in the now, and you're like, oh well, I'm worried that I see a bug right here. If you're seeing a bug right there, it's like you're not saying I'm worried about it. You're like, there's a bug there. I'm not worried that there's going to be a bug there. There is a bug there, right? So if you're worried that, oh, I'm worried I'm going to be broke next week, or I'm worried I'm going to be homeless next week, or whatever, you're worried about something that's not happened yet. When you're actually homeless, you're not saying you're worried about it. You're saying I'm homeless. So how is worrying about it going to make it that much better? It's going to, especially when you worry about things that's completely out of your control.
So Sheryl
Like,
is enrolling you on the possibility program, all of you listening. You can choose to be on the worry program, or you can choose to be in the possibility program. Either
which
way, you're
unreal
right.
world do you want to live in?
Which
I want
one
to
you
live
want?
in the positive unreal world. That's where I'm going to live. I want to live where I'm not constantly worried about things that may or may not happen in the future, things
It's
that I
just
can't control.
exactly. Sheryl, there was this one story you told me. I don't know if you can share it, but I'm sure you don't have to give names or anything, but you had a client that was so super successful that he referred everybody that he knew to you. Can you talk about that success story?
Oh, I don't know if I should really talk about that just in case somebody sees it. I
Well,
mean, I don't know
can
if
you
I
just
should.
give us a hypothetical one? We just need to know,
Yeah,
like,
well,
what?
basically it was someone that was uh, concerned for religious reasons about doing hypnosis,
Mhm.
and found out that someone very close to them had come to me for hypnosis, and was basically calling to scold me and say, how dare you do this, you know and because again, they had a lot of weird perceptions and a lot of weird ideas of what hypnosis was. So I invited him to my office and I said, come to my office, let me explain to you what I do, and if you don't want me to ever talk to your people again, I won't. But I would at least like the chance to explain what I do. So he did. He came to my office, and I explained everything, and he got it. And then he's proceeded to come to me for anxiety, because he had horrible anxiety, and has been referring people to me ever since. And this is someone that's very influential in his community, so uh, it's just, and again, it's like a perception you get, or you think, the reason it was against his religion is because he thought he was going to be out of, that it's going to be mind control, and that's not a good thing. But then when he realized, no, it has nothing to do with mind control. You're doing all the work yourself.
Yeah, it's just hypnosis is you're in a state of meditation, you're relaxed, and you're suggestible. So
Yeah.
this individual, you were able to help him get rid of anxiety so powerfully that he was like, this is incredible. I want to refer my whole community. I think that is so powerful, because I know a lot of people may go to traditional other, modalities, and it doesn't work. And just like when I discovered acupuncture, I was like, I want to tell everyone about it. Same thing with hypnosis. If you can get results, because I've gotten results with NLP on myself that I practiced when I was in training, that I didn't, like, I was able to quit my job because the limiting belief that security was through having a job with the government was released, and I was able to start my business back in 2002. That was such a powerful, empowering belief that came through a similar process. But I think people need to be open to it, right? For it to work.
Well, they do need to be open to it, and you know, and you can also be a little overly thinking it's going to work too fast or too well, and you could be, you know, sometimes it's not like you're just going to go boom, you know, and you're just like, some things are. I mean, sometimes you come in, you need one session, it's done, and it was just that powerful. And other things, you could come for 10 sessions and you're still going, what is going on here? Why can't I change this thing? You know, and that's when it's usually something that has nothing to do with what they're really trying to change. But, you know, I always say everyone has their presenting issues. You know, like you even said, you know, I don't know if I really want to get over this fear of driving, you know. So you have a
Like learned helplessness or something.
you're having secondary gain from holding on to this, holding on to this fear of driving.
Uber drivers in business. No, I'm just kidding.
That, and you don't ever have to drive anywhere. It's always, your friends always have to drive. You never have to worry about driving anywhere because, oh, well, she can't drive. She's got a fear of driving, so we can't ask her, you know. Or you know, like you said, I used to drive everybody everywhere. Now I don't have to do that anymore. You know, so there might be a secondary gain in that of you keeping that, even though it's uncomfortable for you to not be able to. It might be embarrassing that, you know, if you have to tell people that, oh, I have this fear of driving, I can't drive. But you're also getting a secondary gain. So sometimes you have to look at the secondary gain first before you can tackle the actual issue. You know,
that's a really good point, because, you know, it's not like something that's magical. It's something that's really working.
It can be very subtle. It can be very subtle. I've had people all the time saying, you know, I feel like, I don't know if this hypnosis thing really works, but I do notice that I'm doing better at this or doing that. But I think they were expecting such a pow, you know, like just wake up one day and, oh, I'm never going to do that again, you know, or I'm never going to feel that again. Or, but they're like, well, I think it's working, or I think it's really working. And then something else will happen. But I think they're expecting to come out of it at that moment, come out of hypnosis at that moment and feel like a completely different person. Like, you're going to come out of hypnosis and I'm grabbing the keys, I'm getting in the car, and I'm going on a 20-hour road trip. You know, I just feel that powerful.
Let's go to San Francisco. Come on.
Yeah, let's go on a road trip. I'm ready to get on the freeway. No, but you may notice that, you know, that you may notice little subtle changes at first, or you may get that powerful feeling. Like I was telling you, sometimes people who are very suggestible they'll get that powerful, come out of there and jump on the freeway, you know, and not even think about it. You know, sometimes they'll do that. But one little fender bender or something, and they're going to go right back, spiraling right back into that fear again, right? Because then they take on that suggestion too. So it's, you know, sometimes it's better that it's more subtle and it's a process.
Exactly.
Because then
then it's lasting results. It's not the quick fix.
Lasting, yeah.
Love that.
And, you know, and everybody looks for the quick fix. Even with anxiety, you know, my goal is I want to keep people off of anxiety medication or get them off of the anxiety medication. You know, I want that to be the last resort. I'm not totally against it, you know, being on medications for those, but so many people don't need it. They, you know, if they just did a few changes inside themselves and learned a few tools, they wouldn't even need that medication. Some people do. Some people still do. You could do everything, and something so traumatic happened that it's just, you know, they really do need that. But it's
no shame
far
in it.
less.
So it's letting go of the judgment and the perception that it's bad. Whatever it is, right?
Yeah, right.
So we're already out of time. I could talk to you forever. Oh my goodness. I am just so knowing that there are so many people that are just, even in our conversation, are already like, there's a possibility for me. And I know just giving people that hope is a step towards releasing and letting go of some of that fear and anxiety.
Yeah.
And that's really my intention for having you on today, because I know if we want to see peace in the world, we need to create peace within ourselves. And knowing how to release fear and going to someone like you to help us to release that anxiety, I think is so powerful. So I want you to give the information of how people can stay connected with you on social media.
Yeah. Well, definitely, you know, you can find me on Twitter. I was telling Deb my web company went under and my whole entire website got completely not taken down, but completely gone. It's completely gone. So I had to completely redo that because they went out of business and just took my whole website with them. Whatever. But so I don't have a website right now, but you can follow me on Twitter, Hypnotist Sheryl. Find me there, and then you'll be able to follow me. And when my website gets back up, you'll get that. I can do sessions. Oh, it's HYPNOTIST, hypnotist, and then Sheryl with an S, SHERYL. So follow me on Twitter, and also, you know, I can do those consultations either in my office in Culver City. I can do it on the phone. You were making fun of my big headsets, but these are because, you know, when I'm hypnotizing people on Google Talk or through Skype or whatever, these are really necessary because I have to be able to really hear someone's breathing to know when I've got them at a certain level of hypnosis. So that's why I use these kind of.
I was teasing her 1-800 hypnotist.
Yeah. So yeah. So it's once I get to know what someone, you know, when I've hypnotized them a few times, then I don't need the headset so much to do it. But especially the first time, like I can do it with my eyes closed. I don't have to see their face. Just I can do it on the telephone. I can hypnotize people on the telephone.
And just from my personal experience, it works just as well over the phone or over Google Hangout as if you were in person.
It does.
So those of you that are nationwide or around the world that want to have a session with Sheryl, she's so generous to offer tell them again, the consult session.
The consultation, you know, you want to even see if it's going to be something that works for you. You want to see how it works. You know, I'll tell you exactly what's going to happen, how, you know, what it's all about, and
that's free.
you know, you
Free
can decide from there.
right?
Pardon? Yeah, 30. That's a 30-minute consultation, and then if you want to go ahead and do a session after that, then I'll give you 50% off your session too.
That is fantastic. I am going to put that, and this is going to be on YouTube in the description. So I'm going to put So I'm going to put Hypnotist Sheryl. That's her Twitter. You can DM her directly and just book your session, your free 30-minute consultation. And then if you decide it's 50% off for Transformational Tuesday, my friends, you see how we hook you up.
And the other reason I want you to follow me on my Twitter page is because my best friend Deborah Darris here is going to show me how to Periscope, and I will be doing that soon. I want to start doing that soon. So
teach me how to Periscope. Teach me how to Periscope.
I'm
going to be teaching her for sure. You'll be scoping with Sheryl before you know it.
Yeah, so great. Well, thank you for inviting me on. This was great. As you can tell, I love my job, and I could talk about this stuff for hours and hours.
I know. And I can ask you questions and listen to you for hours and hours, but I know we all have to go. But I want to thank you all for tuning in to Transformational Tuesday. My name is Deborah Darris, your host, and this has been a wonderful episode with the amazing hypnotist, Sheryl Bard, live from Culver City. And if you want more information, you could just see the description below. Remember to click, subscribe. And here at Deb TV, we believe that sharing is what?
Caring.
So if you can share this on your Facebook, on your YouTube, with your Twitter, with all of your peeps, we want to make sure that this information to increase more peace, more love, more light on our planet is going viral, my friends. Instead of terrorism winning and going viral, let's have a way to create more peace within us to go viral.
Yeah,
that is the way to do it.
Let's live in the positive, unreal world.
Exactly. If we're going to choose one unreal world, like Henry Ford says, if you think you can, you can. If you think you can't, you can't. Either way, you're right. So we choose the positive. And I want to remind all of you that with the power of synergy, anything is possible. Ciao. Bye-bye. See you guys.
Love you.
Love